The ultimatum arrived at 1432 Greenwich Mean Time and made every screen in Luna Command blink, the same sentence into existence: submit within 72 hours. Dismantle your arms. Accept client status. Admiral Sarah Chen set her coffee down without spilling a drop. It was the calm of a surgeon before a cut. Deep Space Relay confirms non-human origin, said Lieutenant Rodriguez, voice tight. Put it up, Sarah said. A tall, silver-blue being with eyes like polished obsidian looked down on Earth and recited a history of conquest that ran 12 million years long. Planets turned to glass. Cities reduced to noise. Comply or be eliminated, the High Arbiter finished, and left coordinates of ships already inbound. The room breathed once. Then Sarah keyed a code she'd memorized 15 years ago and never thought she'd use. Execute protocol blackout, she ordered. Show them nothing. Trust the plan. Outside Luna Command, Earth dimmed like a stage before the curtain. The trick to fear, Sarah knew, is that it's loud. Protocol blackout made it quiet. In under an hour, Earth's orbital lines fell dark, elevators went to standby, and the Mars beacons winked out like tired eyes. Mining tugs in the belt killed their engines and drifted. To uninvited sensors it would read like collapse, disorder, panic, systems failing in sympathetic cascades. It was a lie that cost power and time and the courage not to answer ringing phones. Traffic from Earth Command, UN, Mars, Belt Consortium. Everyone, Rodriguez said, hands dancing. All asking for priority alpha to all commands, Sarah said, steady. Implement. No questions. Her terminal accepted the old key and threw a message into the quantum lattice that would arrive everywhere at once. The day we prepared for has come. Execute blackout. Show them nothing. Humanity endures. In the Kuiper Belt, Dr. James Okafor stood in a research station the public registry described as 12 people who loved ice. He put his hand against the wall. It shivered. Bring the foundries online, he said. What looked like rock peeled back like fruit to reveal coils, tanks, rails, and a train yard of machinery that had never breathed until now. Throughout the outer system, other labs did the same. Camouflage fell away, purpose took its first steps. Power at 90%, Okafor reported, eyes red with the kind of focus that rewires a life. Hermes Consortium shipyards dropping covers. New Horizons charging the array. All assets are moving to readiness. How long until their vanguard can strike? Sarah asked. Our scouts say 60 hours, he said. They won't wait for the deadline. Sarah nodded. The hegemony, if that's what they called themselves, had built an empire by schedule: demonstrate, terrify, accept surrender, erase the stubborn. It works when your enemies are alone and honest. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning how to be neither under pressure. On the alien scout ship Inevitable Truth, Captain Thicksmole watched the darkening planet and purred satisfaction through gill slits. His sensors tasted a 78% drop in electromagnetic noise. Communications scattered. Installations silent. Another world on the path: disbelief to panic to submission. Any sign of coherent military response? He asked. Negative, "Captain," the operator replied. "Orbitals dark. Ships fleeing at random." They couldn't see the 17 mining vessels that weren't fleeing at all, hulls wrapped in dulling cloth that turned them into absent things. Thixmol's gaze slid off hollowed rocks where human eyes stared back. On Luna, Sarah walked the ring of the operations floor while the big board updated in silence. Blinking green dots marked the installations that had been secrets so long they felt like rumors. Darwin Station near Jupiter was supposed to be a lab with papers about magnetic fields. Its director, Dr. Elena Vasquez, now called in with a voice like wires, "Mass drivers green. Particle beam arrays green. Waiting on signal." "Hold your fire," Sarah said. "We want them comfortable." She wasn't a romantic. She loved rules. In a corner of her mind she kept a list of them and what they were worth. The top ones read like prayers: protect non-combatants. Take prisoners when you can. Make victory mean something other than survival. History whispered caution: Midway's feints, Dunkirk's logistics, code talkers turning complexity into safety. Deception can be moral, she thought, if the point isn't cruelty but time. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said. The message included a demonstration. The board flashed a world in crystal, continents trapped under a sheet of dead glass. Sarah felt the weight of the future press into her ribs. "They've done this 3,000 times, Okafor said on a private line. "They've never met us." "Then let's be us," she said, and watched the countdown spin toward 60 hours, then 59. Cliffhanger: far out beyond Neptune, 12 living hulls like whales with lanterns slipped into the system and began to unfurl. They called it the Black Armada because it sounded like a rumor. It was better as a rumor until you needed it to be a fact. The first revelation came simple: a mining ship called Prospector's Dream shed 200 tons of honest dirt and became the heavy cruiser Retribution, belly plates folding back to show mass drivers long as city buses. A cargo transport labeled Peaceful Journey opened like a seed pod and woke up as the stealth destroyer Shadow Strike, Commander Alex Petrov's voice cutting across the silent net, Blackbird leader to all units. Execute Thunder Run. Show them the price. Around Jupiter, the Darwin Station unfolded its lies. The particle beam array stood up on a spine like a cathedral organ: no stained glass, just cold purpose. Near Saturn, launch tunnels under Titan vomited fighters that had spent their brief lives as rumors in line items. In the belt, asteroids blossomed into shipyards, hatches that had been sealed for years swinging wide to let dark hulls breathe for the first time. Captain Thixmol's sensor picture went from pastoral to nightmare between one heartbeat and the next. Contacts that had not existed were suddenly everywhere. "Our scans showed no military presence," he snapped. "Where did?" "They were, inside rocks," the operator whispered, as if rocks were sacred. "Inside stations we marked as civilian. Inside shipments we passed for months. This wasn't magic. It was planning measured in years and breath held in months. Crews had slept in hibernation beside dead reactors. Engineers had run life support on trickle and learned to be small. If aliens looked for hot engines and big signatures, you learned to be cold and small and patient. You studied what their shields did, not in theory but in practice, and you built weapons that asked different questions. Sarah watched it with a control she had taught herself. "Status across the net," she said. "Shipyards launching," Okafor answered. "Weapon platforms targeting pickets. Trap integrity at 98%. On the board, the alien formation held to doctrine shapes that meant control of lanes, visible dominance, intimidation made geometry. They think their presence is the weapon," Elena said from Jupiter. "Let's disappoint them." History offered its quiet aside again. At Midway, the fancy ships burned not because of destiny but because someone understood that surprise is a force multiplier. The fleet had learned then that confidence dies fastest when it has nowhere to go. On inevitable truth, Thixmol ordered a standard approach to the inner system. He would accept this world's surrender or erase it. The thought of erasure soothed him. It always did. Thixmol did not see 6 human vessels finish charging rails and settle their aim on a sister ship called Living Harmony. "Blackbird, Mark," Petrov said. 6 faint shudders, like doors closing, and 6 slugs left their nests without flame or fanfare. They were long and dense, telephone poles of depleted uranium calibrated to whisper through space at an indecent speed. Energy shields are beautiful against beams. Against things, they are requests. The slugs declined the request. On Luna, a bright icon that meant hostile intact changed to 2 icons that meant debris. Sarah didn't smile. She looked at Rodriguez and said, "Broadcast rescue corridors. Pods are protected." He blinked, then nodded. Rule 1 wrote itself deeper. Cliffhanger, a new contact rose behind the alien formation, massive, curved, and turning toward Jupiter. Elena squinted at the telemetry and said, "They brought a planet killer. It's charging." It started everywhere at once because that's how you trip a giant. The Darwin array took the first formal shot, a line so straight it felt wrong, and drilled a hole through a living hull that had thought it could heal from anything. The particle beam burned clean. The ship died dirty. "Target eliminated," Elena reported, breath fogging the inside of her helm. "Recharging." Petrov's squadron knifed through the formation's rear, small silhouettes lost in the clutter of debris fields and false signatures. The Shadow Strike carried its weapons under skin, so civilian inspectors had patted her bulkheads and signed off on kindness. Now she was all edges. "Angle of attack 3 at 31 degrees, he said, and his pilots spoke back in a chorus of call signs that had learned to share air on zero-G stations. Thixmol tried to adapt. He tightened the formation, brought shield arcs into a lattice that could drape overlapping sectors. He ordered the big guns to sweep and the small to swat. He did not know the humans had mapped every rock in the belt because their children had grown up naming them. He did not know that tunnels cut for or make good places to hide rail cartridges. His doctrine didn't include the idea that prey would pursue wounded hunters. "Boarding parties at the ready," Sarah said, and felt the room tense. "We need prisoners. We need gear intact." Across millions of kilometers, Commander Sarah Kim drove the cruiser Vengeance after a ship called Eternal Peace that had tried to slip away at an angle nobody used unless they were guilty. She kept the distance close, killed the power when the alien did, matched their waste heat with a charm that had been practiced 100 times in a quiet simulator and never once in a sky full of knives. When Eternal Peace finally starved, vengeance reached out metal hands. Inside, the corridors were soft and wrong, but the math of surrender was ancient. Human Marines pulled survivors free and tagged systems with blinking tape that meant do not break. "We have prisoners for intelligence," Kim transmitted, voice clipped. "We have comm nodes and who knows what else." "Treat the wounded," Sarah said. "Catalog everything. Don't pretend we are angels." Rule 2, scratch deep. Elena's second shot took too long. The planet killer, the living engine pointed toward Jupiter, woke a shield mode no one had seen. The beam spread and flared like light through fog. "Damn it," she hissed. "Adapting." Akifer's mind ran 3 branches at once. "They're refracting the beam," he said. "Fine. Rails are not light. Bring the slings online." He had built gravity slings that could throw a house without scuffing the paint. Now he programmed them to hiss rocks along arcs that came in behind the planet killer's clever veil. The first volley hit too wide. The second found ribs. The third volley, because humans test and iterate and get mean, walked shots into a seam where muscle met organ. The hurt was not theatrical. The hurt was adequate. Reyes Paloma Reyes on Sarah's staff, fingers fast, stole a breath of the enemy's quantum network from a captured node and listened for doctrine. What she heard was certainty, a voice telling crews not to fear because fear was for the unintegrated. She put a new clip under it. That confidence lasted exactly 47 minutes. She sent it to every alien uniform who kept an earpiece on. She did not send it to civilians. On Inevitable Truth, alarms learned to scream in a language built for prayer. Thick Smol's tentacles tapped the chair, an old, soft habit. "How," he asked, "are we losing to primitives?" No one told him the obvious truth: superiority is careless when it wins for a million years. Sarah took a breath and let herself feel exactly one thing: pride, scaled to fit in a chest. "Status?" she asked. 7 hostiles destroyed, Rodriguez said, stunned. 3 captured. 2 fleeing. He swallowed. "Our losses are minimal." Cliffhanger, 1 fleeing icon brightened broadcasting coordinates like a flare. "They're calling home," Reyes said. "And something is listening." War runs on fuel, parts, blood, and narrative. Sarah had seen armies lose before they died because the story in their heads turned against them. She had no intention of letting the hegemony keep theirs. "Tie their captured comms into our lattice," she told Reyes. "I want their officers hearing us when they close their eyes." "On it," Reyes said. Quantum keys clicked open like tumblers in a lock. The net that had carried an ultimatum now carried something else. The first broadcast was Sarah's face from the bridge of a human ship, not a planet on its knees. "To the Hegemony Council," she said, voice level. "You ordered Earth to kneel. We don't. We fight. And now we're coming." Akifer was less interested in poetry than plumbing. "We have navigational charts," he said from the soft interior of Gentle Current, the captured bioship being strip-read by patient hands. "We can follow your survivors home." The council watched from far away, a room of silver blueskins patterned with confusion. General Vash II spoke about tactics with fear bleeding into vowels. "They don't defend," he said, replaying footage of human ships hunting like wolves. They pursue. They board. They design weapons to ignore shields. They turn infrastructure into traps. That's not new, Sci-Fi might have said, if he had ever had to explain a loss. But this was. The hegemony's myth of invincibility relied on the silence of the conquered. Reyes replaced silence with signal. Clips of bioships dying to rocks that cared nothing for doctrine. Photographs of Marines handing water to alien prisoners in corridors that pulsed like throats. A map with a blue line crossing the heliopause. Not pleading. Promise. In the belt, Captain Maria Foucault took 30 fighters through a maze her grandparents had mined. The last 2 bioships thought they could hide among stones. They did not understand that every stone had a name and a tunnel. Target the command ship, she told her pilots. Cut off the head. Her squadron swarmed the flagship like wasps, too small for big guns, too mean for small. Missiles learned from misses, turned corners like thoughts. Thixmol made a decision his doctrine didn't cover. He ran for the edge of the system. Eternal wisdom fled hard, aiming for the jump geometry they had charted on 100 other worlds. Commander Sarah Kim chased and ate the distance meter by meter. Instead of a kill, she took engines. Instead of a spectacle, she made a quiet capture at the heliopause, where the sun's breath thins to almost nothing. Vengeance to Fleet Command, she said. We have their navigation. We know the road. Sarah ended the first act with a sentence she had practiced in the mirror and never thought to say into an enemy's house. Humanity does not kneel, she said, and let Reyes wrap it in the hegemony's own carrier wave. The words went places they were not supposed to, brushed the ears of species who had been told resistance was a kind of suicide, and wrote a new line under old prayers. Back on Luna, the big board calmed. Fires flickered out. Rescue drones blinked green around pods that drifted like seeds. The alien formation was gone or broken or in a cage. Sarah stood at the window and looked at Earth. The coffee on her desk had gone cold. She picked it up anyway. Ma'am, Rodriguez said softly, like he'd stumbled into a church, we're getting echoes. Worlds out there listening. Some are, cheering. Good, she said. Because the next part is harder. Cliffhanger, 3 days later, the hegemony's lattice trembled with the arrival of 3 battle fleets over 100 ships. Their captains heard Sarah's promise in their own headsets as they accelerated for Sol. And on a quiet channel, a client species whispered a single word humanity had bled to make possible: uprising. The second wave came harder. 3 full fleets, more than 100 bioships, entered the system with the confidence of tradition. The hegemony never lost when they sent 3 fleets. That was the pattern: intimidation made flesh. And patterns were what humans learned to break. Admiral Sarah Chen didn't wait for them to close. We take the fight outward, she ordered, voice even. We hunt. We deny them rhythm. The Black Armada pivoted like a school of predators, not prey ships leaping from the shadows of rocks, mines flicking awake, lances charging. No static defense, no fortress Earth. Instead, motion. Every lane they think is safe becomes teeth, Sarah said. In the Kuiper Belt, Okafor opened more foundries, not to hold ground but to feed the moving fight. Gravity slings spat rods along arcs the aliens hadn't mapped, each strike walking fire toward supply lines. Civilian mining barges, long written off as abandoned, powered up and unfolded into cruisers that fired once and vanished again. Elena Vasquez near Jupiter timed a second particle beam volley to catch an enemy carrier just as it thought it had recharged. The beam cracked the hull open like a geode. Fighters poured out burning. Reyes, fingers quick, flooded the hegemony lattice with new noise, distress calls that weren't real, sightings that bent fleets the wrong way. "They'll adapt," she said, hair plastered to her forehead. But not fast enough. Her broadcasts carried one refrain: "This is not panic. This is preparation." She sent it in a dozen languages, seated among the conquered, riding alien carriers to ears hungry for hope. Captain Petrov's Shadow Strike ran at the front of the first Thunder Run. They came from behind the Second Fleet, a move Doctrine had no answer for. Petrov's squadron of former cargo ships loosed kinetic fire into the soft backs of bioships built to show faces, not flanks. Blackbird leader, target of opportunity confirmed, he called, voice clipped. His people answered in the language of impacts. Thixmol wasn't there anymore. His reports had gone silent. But other alien captains learned fear where they'd never practiced it. When a bioship took damage, they pulled back, expected space to give them safety. Human cruisers chased, closed, boarded. "We need prisoners," Sarah said again. "We need their charts." The rule held. Not all decisions were clean. At Saturn, Fukov's fighters intercepted a hegemony transport half full of priests and half full of weapons. Doctrine would torch the whole. Fukov ordered a split strike: disable the weapons deck, leave the priest pods intact. Her crews cursed the risk. "We're not here to kill everyone," she said. "We're here to win something better." The fleets didn't break all at once. They bled. And as they bled, the story shifted. For the first time in 12 million years, the hegemony lost not because of some anomaly but because of deliberate resistance. Losses stacked in columns that didn't fit their scriptures. "They can't hide this," Reyes whispered, jamming more. "Every junior officer with a receiver knows." Sarah stood in command, pulse steady. "We've shown we can survive," she said. "Now we show we can choose the battlefield." The Black Armada turned outward, chasing survivors to the edge of Sol. They weren't defending a planet anymore. They were hunting fleets in interstellar dark. Cliffhanger: on the captured Eternal Wisdom, a navigation file blinked awake, jump coordinates into hegemony core space. For the first time, Earth's board showed not only defense, but a path to offense. It started with whispers, carried by the same quantum network the hegemony had used to enforce obedience. Worlds that had bowed for centuries heard the impossible. Earth had not only survived but struck back. Resistance, the story went, was not only possible but contagious. On Kothmar, a young alien saw human torpedoes slash a patrol ship in orbit and felt her gills flutter with something like hope. On a mining world whose name the hegemony had erased, workers painted the words "some species fight back" on the hull of a cargo hauler before pushing it into orbit with stolen thrusters. The Black Armada hadn't asked for allies yet. They were arriving anyway. Dr. Okafor confirmed it from his console, intercepted chatter, whole systems going quiet to hide from patrols, client militias refusing supply orders. 17 species declaring independence, he said, disbelief rough in his voice. They're calling it the Liberation Alliance. Sarah felt the weight of that phrase settle on her shoulders. Are they ready? She asked. No, Okafor said. Neither were we. At Luna, Rodriguez read surrender pings from worlds on the fringe. They want weapons, training, anything. Sarah remembered history's quiet lessons, uprisings without coordination died bloody. She thought of Warsaw's radio, of slaves who had sung their messages in chains. We give them what we can, she said. But we don't promise what we can't. Reyes crafted broadcasts tailored to the newly risen. Clips of human ships swarming giants, spliced with calm voices explaining how to strike supply chains, how to jam him frequencies, how to scatter and regroup. Don't stand still, she told them. Standing still is what they expect. Not every ally fought clean. Reports came in of massacres, purges, old hatreds exploding once chains broke. Sarah closed her eyes, then opened them. We can't stop every crime, she said, voice bitter. But we can model better. We can show restraint where they haven't. The Hegemony Council reeled. Zephi's skin patterns flickered in disbelief as reports stacked, sectors 7 through 12 dark, fleets gone, allies defecting. How can this be? He demanded. General Vash II answered with the truth no one wanted, they fight like predators. They don't defend. They strike and vanish. And now others are copying them. The Black Armada grew. Captured shipyards lit with new forges. Fighters rolled off lines that had once built mining shuttles. Fukov flew alongside pilots whose scales still gleamed young, teaching them how to knife through a convoy without killing everything in sight. We're building a coalition, not a funeral, she told them. Some listened. Some didn't. War is a teacher with a cruel curriculum. Sarah stood at her command deck, gaze fixed on a new board lit with blue markers, Allied systems. For the first time, Earth wasn't alone. The story was rewriting itself, not just here but everywhere. And the hegemony couldn't jam it fast enough. Cliffhanger, intelligence from a boarded ship revealed coordinates of the hegemony's central fortress world, a cathedral array never attacked in its history. Okafor's voice was cold. If we want to break them, that's the place. The fortress at Sigma Draenus was supposed to be eternal. Shields thick as suns, fleets 3 times the size of any challenger, supply lines fat and sure. The hegemony had written it into scripture as proof, resistance was folly. Maria Fukov didn't read scripture. She read logistics. Forget the fortress, she told her squadron. Hit what feeds it. Fighters slashed through the mining operation that kept its forges burning, the relay that sang orders, the fuel depot that let ships leave dock. In 6 hours, the fortress was blind, hungry, and alone. On an open channel she offered surrender. They took it. It was the first time in hegemony history a fortress had capitulated. The psychological impact rippled. News spread across the lattice faster than censorship. If a fortress could fall, anything could. Client species that had wavered now arose in earnest. The Liberation Alliance grew from 17 to 100. In the council chamber, SciFi faced what no high arbiter had: open dissent. Half the council demanded negotiation. Half screamed for escalation, even planet killers. Reports from the front described humans not as primitives but as teachers, their tactics adopted wholesale by rebels. "They've turned our own empire against us," Vash-2 admitted. His scales were white with stress. Sarah Chen received those reports through the very arrays they had stolen. On Luna, she planned strikes not just against fleets but against narrative. "Every message they send," she said, "we rewrite. Every order they issue, we jam. Their captains will hear us louder than their priests." Okafor's captured labs churned. Human engineers pulled apart self-healing hulls, quantum comms, weapons that cracked planets. Integrated into new frames, the next generation of ships flew faster, hit harder. The Black Armada was no longer just human, it was hybrid, adapted, evolved. Not all choices were clean. At Droanus, Sarah signed off on a strike that would cut a fleet's supply at the cost of starving thousands on a dependent world. She made herself read the report twice, then wrote the order anyway. Rule 3, she thought grimly, sometimes survival means debt you'll pay later. The hegemony faltered. For the first time, their fleets avoided battle. Captains who had never tasted fear learned to run. And in their place, Liberation Alliance banners spread. The galaxy was tilting, slowly but irrevocably, toward rebellion. Cliffhanger, Okafor sent Sarah a file. "Captured NAV data from Eternal Wisdom's core," he said. "It's not just the fortress. It's the coordinates of the hegemony homeworld itself." Sarah stared. "Then that's where we go." The war's final chapter didn't look like the beginning. There was no ultimatum, no hymn, no single act of intimidation. It was chaos, rebellions on 1,000 worlds, fleets scattered, the council split, the myth in ruins. The Black Armada moved through it like a blade. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of Indomitable, the dreadnought built from captured tech and human stubbornness. Before her, the hegemony's central depot burned, a moon-sized station unraveling under fire. "Status?" she asked. "Depot destroyed," Petrov answered, now her tactical chief. 3 bioships captured. Communication arrays secured. His tone carried disbelief at his own words. For 12 million years, no one had done this. Now it was happening daily. Okafor appeared on screen from a lab that had once been alien. 17 more client worlds have joined. They're calling for instruction. Sarah thought of the weight of teaching, heavier than war. "Then we'll teach," she said. In the council's chamber, SciFi made his last transmission. No arrogance now, only exhaustion. "You have accomplished the impossible," he admitted from a cell. "You have shown freedom is stronger than fear. We surrender. Teach us how to be free." The message spread faster than any hymn. On Kothmar, the young alien who had once whispered questions looked up at the sky and saw human ships burning a patrol into dust. She didn't ask if it was possible anymore. She knew. Back on Luna, Sarah watched Earth turn, still blue, still fragile. Rodriguez stepped forward. "Ma'am, over 300 species are applying for membership in the Liberation Alliance. They want to learn our tactics. Our philosophy." Sarah nodded. "Then we write it down. Not just how to fight, but why. Not just how to win, but how to endure." History's echo was clear: when the powerful demand submission, some kneel, some run. But some prepare. Some fight. Some build an armada in silence and rise when the time comes. The Black Armada had risen. And the age of kneeling was over.